Good evening, everybody. I'm Bonnie Hunter, and you are in the basement at Quiltville, where we are ready to sew some lozenge blocks together tonight. The lozenge project was our 2014 summer leader and ender challenge, so this started last summer. The pattern is free under the free patterns tab at the top of the blog, and you can make as many or as few of these as you want. The objective is to use up all of that questionable fabric that has been languishing in your studio. Maybe you've got some lovely florals from the 1990s, or you've got some leftover trimmings from backings that are not really enough to do anything, but you've got kind of a wideish strip, and maybe you can get a 3.5 inch by 6.5 inch rectangle. We're using all different prints as the rectangles. These corners are sew and flip 2-inch squares. Now I've got some gals that have decided to do this mini size, and so they are doing smaller rectangles and smaller squares. Some have gone even bigger, but the object is to use these as leaders and enders while you are in between the lines of sewing other things. So over the past year, I have kept rectangles and squares near my machine, and when I was chain piecing and I got to the end of my chain, I would take a rectangle, put a square in one corner, sew the diagonal, flip that up. It stays underneath the machine presser foot while I snip my chain from behind, go press, cut those apart, come back, sew some more, sew another corner on. So at the end of every 4 chains, and I tend to use fairly short chains, I don't sew 800 triangles before I sew another leader ender in, you get a unit that looks like this. Now there's something interesting I want to show you, and I hope you can see it in the camera. Can you see how these are pressed? We've got 2 corners, this corner here and this corner here, go in towards the lozenge, towards the rectangle. These corners go out towards the triangles we've just added. And something really wonderful happens when we put these together. If I hold these up, hopefully you can see, if I've got the back showing, these seams will automatically nest each other through the entire quilt if you press them consistently the same way every time. So that means that these corners always go in, these corners always go out. You can't put some of these in and some of these out. And definitely don't press them all out, because then you've got to pin to match everything. Now my plan is tonight, I am just finally getting to the point of sewing these together. The quilt will be in alternating rows of neutral corners, black corners, neutral corners, black corners, neutral corners, black corners, and the next row will be mirror image of that. So if I just build my rows, I can flip-flop the rows and have them automatically do the mirror image thing. But I think it would be easier for me to handle this as an on-the-road project, because I'm leaving for teaching for the week. I'll be up in Maryland, around Columbia and Mount Airy over the next several days, and then I go up to New Jersey for the Garden State Quilters in Chatham over the weekend. So I need to be able to sew on this without having to worry about laying it out in rows, arranging things the way that they should be before I start assembling this. So my plan is, if I sew them in 4s, then I can join 4s into 8s, and then those will be big blocks, and then I'll be able to play with those and arrange those which way I want them to go. But it means I need to be consistent in how I sew these together. It's really simple. When you've pressed correctly, I have found that I rarely need to pin. So far I haven't had to pick out anything. So I'm putting my lighter one on the bottom and my one with the darker corners on top, so they are all the same. Now, one thing that's really fun, and I'll pull this one up here to show you, and this fabric has shown up in several quilts over the years, but do you see this little pink print here? Little scattered flowers. They're kind of a pinky purple on a lighter pink background. That was fabric scraps from a dress that I made when I was just dating my husband in 1981. The fabric was purchased at a Ben Franklin store in Meridian, Idaho. Now, this fabric, I don't even remember if it had a selvage. It is 100% cotton. It feels like quilting cotton. I have sewn with it. I've worn clothing out of it. But what I love about this is just looking at that print gives me that memory. And it's not about who designed the fabric, who was the manufacturer of the fabric, or what line it came from. It's about the fabric. This is my fabric, no matter who designed it. And when I see this fabric, I think about that dress that I made for date number 2, when I was just dating my husband. So that's the kind of fun I have when going through my scraps and deciding what's going to go where. There is nothing that is too old, too ugly, too unusable, especially when you get it down to the size of this triangle. By the time I take another seam here, it's going to be half of a 1.5 inch square. So use it up. Sew those old memory fabrics. Bring them out. Let them play. Now, I am just trying to put contrasting things together. So I've got my piles over here to my right. And these seams just wonderfully nest each other. Now, when I'm joining the 4s into 8s, if there's any place where there's a lot of these kind of points may need to be pinned, but definitely not here. This will just be a straight nested job. I am happy when I don't have to pin everything. And they do, they just go so nice. So I'm just putting these together. As long as they're not 2 of the same color family next door to each other, I'm perfectly fine with whatever ends up next to what. I mean, some fabrics really should never have been printed. Brown on green is not a pretty combination, but we'll stick it to something, next to something, like a pretty blue, and it will not look so bad once it's in the entire quilt. This is one I hope to have on one of the guest beds at the cabin. You'll find the free pattern under the free patterns tab at the top of the blog. All right. So I've just got my chain going here, all kinds of things together. So here's a juvenile print with alphabet letters next to a 1980s brown calico. Will it work? Absolutely. Absolutely. And the nice thing is that your quilt will not look like anybody else's quilt because it's got your fabric signature in it. So tonight I am looking for emails to my email address, quiltville@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment in the comment section if you're watching on the blog where this feed is embedded. If you leave a comment, that also shows up in my email and I can reply. If you reply on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube where this is streaming live, that will also show up in my email and I can answer that. Things that I can't answer, questions or comments in Google Plus or Facebook or Instagram, things like that. The keyboard's quite a ways away from me, so I can't scroll through websites to try to find what you're commenting. But if it shows up in my email, I can get it on my phone. So let's come over here. Here's Shirley, who's left a comment. And she says, I'm wondering if you've been able to try out the stiletto that I gifted you in Oklahoma. Love the lecture and getting to share my quilts with you. Yes, Shirley, I have. In fact, it's up at the cabin in a very special place, and I was using it for some really teeny tiny piecing. I absolutely love it. Her husband made a very sharp stiletto that looks like it was made out of an old teaspoon or something. The handle is just beautiful. So thank you for that gift. I love it. And this one is from Susan, who says, Quilt-Cam, yay. Hi, Susan. She says, thank you so much for having Quilt-Cam tonight. I finished the binding on my Smith Mountain Morning. Love it. My brother is going to love it too. Picture below. It's on its side. So I will show you the picture in just a second. He wanted a pillow tuck with it. So as you can see, the length goes down the hall. Also, I had to do a piano key border because I didn't have enough of the white fabric to do the triangles. And then she says she's going to do something small next because she's out of scraps and this big quilt was a big project. Here is, she says, glad you enjoyed some lobster up in New England. Up here, yes. And can you see, Susan? I don't know if you can tell what these earrings are. Can you see? They are little lobsters. I picked these up on the morning when we were wandering around town and sightseeing and seeing lighthouses because we had a sunny day the day that I flew out. And I picked up these little lobsters. They're my absolute favorite. So thank you for showing me such a wonderful time in Maine. And here's her quilt right here. It does. It goes, if you can see the picture, it goes around the doorway and down the hall. It actually goes beyond that doorway and wraps around that door frame there. So that's for her brother, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. I love it, love it, love it. Okay. This one's from Kathy Dale, who says, happy travels. And she's making progress on her Easy Street. I haven't seen her for a couple of months. We met up in Greensboro a couple months ago. Here's a picture. She's got bins all over the place, but here's what's on her design wall. So she's got 4 of the blocks for Easy Street all on there. Looking good, Kathy. Hope things are well down in Charlotte. And we click back and we click back and we click back. They are coming as fast as I can answer them here. So Janine says, making 9 patches for a fun project. There are other parts for this block. We'll share more later, much later, because I need to make 121 more. Loving Quilt-Cam tonight, and that's from Jan. So she's showing her little itsy bitsy 9 patches. You got about 120 to go after this one. Good girl. Glad to have you join us tonight. So what are you working on? What is on your bucket list? And is there something that has not seen the light of day in a while? Maybe that needs to come out and play. And if you can hear my phone buzzing, it was a good thing I remembered to take it off of ring and put it on buzz. Yeah, these are fun. Yep, that way. You can flip them up and down. Now, I used many different black prints for my blacks and many different neutrals for my lights, but you could choose just one solid black or one solid neutral, or you could change the colors. Do red, or do red and navy. Do whatever you want. This is just a really fun way to sew up some larger hunks. 3.5 by 6.5 is a size that just does not come out to play a lot for me. So it's fun to have these going. And I was able to cut these all. See, that's a purple. We need one that's not also purple, so I'm going to dig down here deeper. And I did have them pinned in sets of 10. So these all came out of my 3.5-inch strip drawer, and I found that I don't use my 3.5-inch strips as often as I do the 2.5, so there were a lot that were just languishing. Cut them up. One with light corners and one with dark corners. Put that not too much the same. Gotta find something different. And the weirder the fabric, the better I like it. You can feel those seams just nest, and once they're nested, then I can start to sew. And once I'm past that seam, I nest the second one. And I just hold it there until it's sewn past there. And if I flip these open, I can tell that, yeah, because those seams nested, I've got nice sharp points. So the side-by-sides are easy. I may have to pin to match these ones when I join them to something, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Red next to teal? Absolutely. So my goal is, if I take this with me on the road this week, if I get everything sewn into pairs, and then pairs sewn into 4s, I can start joining 4s to 8s. It will be easy for me to lay it out and then assemble it as a top. Giant brown polka dots. I have no idea where that came from. Must be in one of those luscious gift boxes that shows up on my doorstep from time to time. I was going to change out the machine, but I just ran out of time. I got a call from the hubby who said, can you grab my this and my that and a couple cans of tennis balls? He has a league tonight, and he was working in Hickory and didn't get off in time to come home and change and then go down to play where his league is. And so I had to run out and meet him partway with his stuff, which meant that there was no time to change out the machine for something more interesting. I think I've sewn on this one, what, four quilt cams now? It's time for a change. But I do love this machine. How about this combo? We have some patriotic stars and a purple floral. Like it, like it? Too bad, it's going together. Well, because this is a driving trip, I got to pack up my own machine to take. Whoops, that's a black and a. Try to keep these in their correct piles. So I packed up something that has not seen the light of day for a while. I'm bringing my cheddar featherweight. Needs a good going through the paces, I think. Got some yellow and another. Ooh, I want that blue one. So I do kind of pick and choose. If something looks good next to something, we'll sew it there. But these are really simple units, and it makes a neat quilt. Okay. Must obey the buzzing on my phone. It would make a neat baby quilt with I Spy fabrics as the rectangles and bright colors as the corners. There's just so many things that we can do. Nope, I want the red one. Much better. When I do this, I try not to be too picky or too choosy and just make my choices quickly. So how long can this chain go? A lot longer. Okay. So we've got a text message that came in. My phone's been really slow lately. My girlfriend Mona says, I'm watching you. Hi, Mona. She says she's binding is complete on the first side. Hooray for Mona, who came over and had her first long arm quilting experience over the last couple of days. She was the first time she's ever come to my house. I know her from up at our cabin where they live full time, and she got to come home from Ohio on Saturday, spent Easter Sunday with her hubby and had dinner with us, and then followed me home here yesterday morning, and we loaded up one of her very first quilt in the long arm and got that quilted, and showed her how to cut the binding, how to join the binding strips on the diagonal, how to snip those corners off, press those seams open, press the binding in half, sew it to the quilt, miter the corners, miter the edge where the two strips overlap and join each other. And then this morning she did it all over again. She had a string quilt that is couch sized, and we got that quilted, and she did that whole binding process again, got it stitched on. So now she's learning to use a thimble and learning to do hand stitching to sew that binding to the back of the quilt. So she's got lots of cozy time while watching some TV with her hubby over the next few weeks while I'm gone. It was just a pleasure to have her here. Remember putting on your first binding? She did a good job. She did a really good job. Okay, so we're going to check the email here. Back to the top of the list here. Let's just go to the way top. Come on, email. Okay, Palmer Gal says, love the Smith Mountain quilt. Can't wait to start mine in Soldotna. Yay! I will be in Soldotna in May. I am so excited. We're taking The hubby loves to come with me to Alaska. Besides, I need him to be my carry-all, and I can take twice the luggage if he comes with me. So, so we're planning on flying into Anchorage and then going down to Moose Pass to spend the day with his cousin who lives up there. And then we'll go on down to Soldotna and spend time with those ladies there. Then we're going to go back up to Anchorage, drop off the rental car, take a train to Fairbanks, and then we'll rent a car and drive down to Delta Junction, spend time down there, working with the Forget-Me-Not quilters there in Delta Junction. Always fun to see them. This is a wonderful place to go in May. Awesome. Although the mosquitoes are like giant. But then we'll go up to Fairbanks and teach for the guild. I think it's the cabin quilters or something. I can't remember the name of the guild, but it's the Fairbanks Guild, and we'll be there for a few days, and then I'll fly home from Fairbanks. So that's going to be a wonderful trip there. That's almost 2 weeks by the time we put it all together. So that'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing you, Pat. Get those fabrics picked out and do some pre-cutting. The class supply list will have you come with some strips, but not to do any pre-sewing ahead of time. Okay. Back here, we have Karen, who says, what I'm working on. Thank you for the surprise Quilt-Cam tonight, she says. You're welcome. When I realized that, oh, I'm just about packed. I'm home alone. Hubby's got tennis. Son's gone. We haven't done Quilt-Cam, and I don't know when it will be after this too, because April, May, and June are absolutely insane. If you want to know where I'll be and who I'm visiting, if there's a place near you, click the calendar of events tab that's at the top of the blog. It'll show you where I'll be, and there's the guild website, if they have one, is linked, and then the contact person, if you want to find out if they have room in that class or where you would go to hear the lecture, give that contact person an email, and they will let you know. But check that out, and you'll find where I'm going to be. Here is Karen, who says, I'm working on an additional scrappy 9-patch border for my Grand Illusion Mystery. I'm excited to go for your workshop in Kirksville, Missouri in September. When do you think the projects will be chosen for that weekend? Any chance you will have a new book out by then? It's up to the guild to choose the workshops. So there you go. Grab the contact person and send them an email. Information is just coming in. Usually within 90 days of the workshop of my appearance, they will know what they're doing, if not 6 months. And that's about where we're at right now. We're about 6 months out, so it should be fairly soon. As far as a new book out by September, no. It's going to be a while. I've got several irons in the fire right now, and some things to work through. So it's my books releases have been planned to be about 2 years apart, and we are coming up in May on 1 year since the last release. So it won't be time for the next book release yet, but as soon as I know, I will let you know. We're working on the quilts right now. And you know how busy my schedule has been. The writing still has to happen. The quilts are getting done, but the writing has to happen. But thank you for staying in touch with that and encouraging me to keep going. Marquet says, Quilt-Cam and taxes. Thanks for Quilt-Cam tonight. What a wonderful surprise. Hope the storm we are having doesn't affect the service tonight. So far, so good. Not sewing tonight as I'm working on taxes, but I love that I'm getting to listen and watch you sew. So happy that Mona was able to get her 2 quilts finished. Lucky she has you for a friend, and I'm luckier that I have her for a friend, because it's these kind of friendships are rare, and it's just wonderful. And I know my life is busy, and I don't always have the opportunity to be the best kind of friend that I want to be. I'm not the one who will text somebody every day or a phone call every day or whatever, and usually I'm running from this to the other thing, and I hope my friends know that I'm thinking about them, even if I'm not texting all the time, or being the kind of friend who can say, let's go out for lunch or whatever. When life slows down, I'll be a better friend, I promise. She says, hope you have a wonderful trip and find some quilty goodness. Absolutely. You know, driving up I-95 is kind of yuck. That's true. But there are some other routes that I've taken to go up through Virginia, up into Maryland before, and I'm toying with the idea of hitting some back roads and maybe some antique malls on my way up. I've got more fabric that I know what to do with, so I won't be quilt shop hopping, but you know what I'm always looking for? Anything vintage, textiles, quilts, old sewing notions, vintage sewing machines, that kind of stuff. So hopefully we'll have some antique mall excursion posts coming up on that. Katie says, thanks for Quilt-Cam. Tonight I'm piecing the blocks for two of my Grand Illusion quilts. They got pushed to the back burner as I joined in an orange crush along and an Easy Street quilt along. So she's been busy, busy, busy. Let's see if I can pop her photo up here. Oh, goodness sakes, that looks great. I love seeing our block designs done in your fabrics, your color combos. It's just a personality thing. It shows so much of what you're doing, and you must have this planned for somebody. That is really fun. Here's her other colorway here for one of the blocks. Super job. And there's her Easy Street. Boy, those hallways sometimes seem to be the only place we can lay things out, doesn't it? That looks awesome. Again, a completely different colorway. That looks just fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. And that was Katie from Utah, who's busy, busy, busy. Anita says, greetings from Chicago. So hello to the big windy city. She said, so thrilled to be seeing you in the basement. I just came up from my studio to check email and found out Quilt-Cam was on for tonight. Yay. Attached is my latest project. Ooh, peppered cottons. Triple windmill blocks pieced on paper foundations. Tonight I started the machine quilting. So cool to watch Mona's fabulous progress on her first two of many, many quilts to come. I have a binding that needs to be turned and stitched, which will be my project for the rest of the evening. It needs to get done because my April and May looks to be jam-packed too, now that spring has sprung. So this is from Anita. Ooh, that is very cool. So she's working on this, getting this very modern looking quilt, machine quilted. Look at all those colors. Aren't they gorgeous? I love how color plays against color, and I really believe that most colors work together just fine, and we tend to get hung up on the print of the fabric instead of the color of the fabric. But when you take something that, you know, peppered cottons are a shot cotton, so they have the weft of one color and the warp of another, and it's just luscious fabric designed by Pepper Corey, which is, I love plays on words, so calling these peppered cottons is just absolutely wonderful. But when you remove the print from brightly colored fabrics, it's just like playing with a box of crayons. Any color can go next to any other color. We tend to forget that when we play with printed fabric, and we tend to think that only Civil War can go with Civil War, or only 30s can go with 30s. Throw it all in there. It's so much more fun. Okay, let's go back on that one. This one is from Mallory, who says, hi Mallory. She says, sitting here watching with Rosalind, she's turned 1 year old on March 4th, and she keeps waving hi to the screen. She thinks it's Skype. Hi there, Rosalind. How are you, sweetheart? It's almost Skype, but not quite. I can't see you, but I'm glad that you're here with your mama and letting her have some Quilt-Cam time. Thanks for all you do. And that's from Mallory in Indiana, where hopefully things are springing up nicely there too. Betsy Kessler says, oh, she's in Chesapeake. Finish the blocks for the Grand Illusion. My very last block has to be ripped as I sewed it wrong. It is the oddball in the middle with the turquoise and white going the wrong way. My first mystery, and I'm finishing the last row, top and bottom of a star quilt for a second granddaughter. I never want to do another star with diamonds for a long, long time. Well, you kind of worked this one hard, hon. Let's see if I can get this. I'm trying to get it to fit the screen. There we go. So there's her Grand Illusion blocks right there. And you know, those diamonds are awful appealing. They really look nice. Doing those is also the same technique as doing these lozenges, only you're putting on 4 corners instead of 2. On those diamond points, you would have one large half square triangle that would come all the way down and flip up, and the other one would go the other way. But this is the same technique, only 4 squares, sew and flip. Let's do some more. This project's not going very far. Maybe because I've got all these ugly browns on top. But the proper pressing of these makes all the difference in the world. So here's our red 30s. And we'll put it next to a brown Civil War because we can. Aha, I found a seam pressed the wrong way. We'll fix that. I had a lot of this murky milk toast brown. What are you going to do with it? It's just too brown. So you stick it next to a pink, and it kind of livens it up a little bit. So far, haven't run out of bobbin thread. This is another good thing. Brown next to purple. Boy, this, I must have just had the brown stack all together. So another reason why we're doing Quilt-Cam tonight, just off the top of my head, so you know what happened here. But I want to get some more colors because that's really boring. Okay. Red. We like red. Or green. Okay. I got back last Tuesday night, late. It was like 10:30 or so when my flight came in from Maine. And I spent Wednesday getting all of the book orders out that had come in that week while I was gone. And then on Thursday, the hubby said, let's go up to the cabin a day early. And Wednesday night was my first night home with him after being gone. So there was no chance for Quilt-Cam then. By Thursday night, we were up at the cabin. Then we had Good Friday, Saturday, Easter Sunday, Monday was yesterday, and today. So that's why there was no Quilt-Cam last week. I thought I could do it on Thursday night before going up to the cabin on Friday, but it turned out that we went up a day early. And you know what? I'm glad I did. So as I've always said, and I think you understand, that Quilt-Cam happens when Quilt-Cam can happen. And it's not on any schedule. I can't do it every Friday night or whatever, because life has to come first. Yeah, I like that. But we fit it in as often as we can, and I really enjoy it, and I appreciate your patience when I can't do it. One thing I've never tried is while I'm on a trip, I never know, you know, hotels just don't have that great of Wi-Fi to be able to do that, but I've never checked to see if Quilt-Cam would work from a hotel room. So maybe we'll be able to do that if I don't have to get up and teach a workshop the next morning super early or something. Because I do miss it too. Purple and orange, absolutely. I do know that the Wi-Fi at the cabin is not strong enough. I can't stream anything. I get a pucker there. Nope, did not. Good. No, we are so, I like that one better. We are so dependent upon our internet connections. And we forget if all of a sudden we don't have one that, oh, shoot, I can't do that. There's just some Really interesting fabric combinations. I really want to confuse the quilt documenters 50, 75 years from now. When they look at my quilts, they won't know when they're from. How many of you remember the lovely cow jumping over the moon fabric? I think this is the tail end of it. I've used it as quilt backings. It's in quilt fronts. I had a whole bolt of cow jumping over the moon. Stick it with this yellow. Still got bobbin thread, but I'm liking that. I don't know if you can see these. Because they're nested, I get a really nice sharp point right here. Those opposing seams just really help. So happy with green polka dots. It even cracks me up when I find a little bit of fairy frost or something in there. Fairy frost is something I have never bought, but I've been gifted a bit. And it finds itself into scrap quilts, and I love it when there's something just a little bit shiny, sparkly next to something that's really stately and kind of stuffy. It's like, who let the bimbo in the ballroom? All right, one more. Cute. I'm anxious to see this together. All right. Chain's growing longer. You know, with my luck, there's not a lot of daylight left, or there's no daylight left for today, but I'll be to bed fairly early tonight as soon as we're done with Quilt-Cam. This whole chain is likely just to end up in the van as is, and I'll deal with it when I get to my hotel in Maryland tomorrow night. But what's nice about a driving trip is I can pack all my stuff. I can pack an extra folding table. I can pack my ironing pad and my little table that it's on to set next to me. I can pack more projects that I need just in case I don't want to work on one. So I love a driving trip. I'm really excited. Okay. Back to the emails here. My phone really needs a reboot as far as, you know, back to factory settings, because it is uber slow clicking anything. Ramona. Hi, Ramona. She says, it was great to see you again in Maine. It was so fun to see you walk in. I looked up and there she was. It was wonderful. Today I am working on the borders for Grand Illusion. There's a lot of Grand Illusioning going on tonight. I am also planning an elephant quilt for my new granddaughter to be in June. This is her mother's theme, taking a 12-inch block and making it 24. So much fun. That sounds like the perfect baby quilt, Ramona. So that brings to mind another question. Mona was asking me, you know, about different sizes of quilts. So we know that off the top of our head, quilters just walk around with the sizes of quilts just in our brain. We know that the full-size quilt is 70 by 90, and the queen is 90 by 108, and the king is 120 by 120, and a lap is, well, whatever a lap is. What size of baby quilts do you make? If you make a lot of baby quilts, is there a certain size you shoot for? Let us know. Drop me an email because we're curious. I will make baby quilts up to 50 inches square just because I like the kid to still drag it around when they're 5. Why put all that work into it to make a 30-inch square thing that is, you know, they grow out of them so quickly. But do you have a standard size of baby quilt that you make or that you shoot for? Drop me an email and let me know. She also says, Okay, so she's blowing up the 12-inch block and turning it into 24. I think that's a great idea, to take a block that you like and biggie size it so you only have to make one block and it's done. That's a wonderful idea. Okay, so this one is from, oh, wonderful. This is from Valerie. She says, yay, Quilt-Cam. I had to stop work on my talking turkey to work on a quilt for a friend who's moving to Hawaii. Loving working on it with you in the background. It's like being at a sewing retreat. I think so too. And I get to see all of your goodies. So as I'm looking at this, this is very cool. So she's kind of got a barn raising thing going on here with different, are they florals? Are they like Hawaiian prints? But it's like there's a stripe down two sides of a, it's not half square triangles. So is it by rectangle? Those, is it, you know, a birangle or whatever? That's awesome. So tell me more about your pattern and how you're doing that, Valerie. That's gorgeous. Okay, and this one's from Rainey, who says, getting ready to quilt this leaf quilt for a wedding gift. Enjoyed the photos of Mona. Looks like she's hooked. And that's from Lorraine. And she says the free pattern for the quilt that she's working on is at allpeoplequilt.com. So let me show you what she's working on. It looks like a maple leaf in a half log cabin block. That would be another great way to use up the scraps. You know, by the time you cut those ugly scraps, narrow strips for the log cabin part, it's not about the print on the fabric anymore. That's a lot of fun. And your friend's going to absolutely love that. Okay. Go back. See, it's just phone. You are just not. Ann Barrett says scrap making. And the retired upholsterer from Norfolk, England here. I'm working on an attic window quilt made from a K-facet fabric. It's for my eldest son, Chris, and his partner. Wonderful. As you know, I am very new to quilting, but I wanted to try a quilt with the infamous Y seam. Now, you know this, Anne. We call the Y seam the WHY seam because sometimes we just want to find a different way to do it. But sometimes the only way to really get that really effective block the way you want it is to do the Y seam. So good for you. She says, it's nice, but all I could think of while making it was, ooh, I'll have some lovely string scraps when this is finished. Looks like I am a scrap quilter at heart, destined to let the newest jelly roll prints pass me happily by. I traveled up to Derbyshire this week to collect this little beauty. Oh my goodness, a Singer 216G. Straight and zigzag stitch treadle machine. You know, I have heard that that is if you have this machine, it will be the last machine you will ever need for anything because it also does a blind hem. Is that correct? I think this is the model number that comes with a blind hem stitch. And it fits in the treadle cabinet, which there's not very many zigzags that work that well. Oh, that's wonderful for you. I'm excited. Terrific. And she says, looking for a lovely Victorian treadle table for her. And she says, well done, Mona, lovely quilts. So that's Anne, who is up way past her bedtime up in Norfolk, England. And this is her quilt. This is the attic, the K-facet attic windows, but it does look so 3D. That is awesome. If you can see what she's got going on there with those blocks, doesn't that look 3D? It really does. Attic window blocks do that. And it's a wonderful way to showcase different prints that you don't want to cut up. If you cut them into, you know, large enough squares so the print is still visible and you set them in that setting, they kind of recede like you're looking at them through a window pane. That is just beautiful. Lovely. Okay. Back arrow, but that machine. I hate to ask what you found it for. That was wonderful. Oh, Rebecca says you've created a monster. Couldn't wait to share with you a few of the new to me vintage machines I've collected this year since I began following you on Quilt-Cam and Quiltville. Last year I had one featherweight. Last year. Okay, now this year. She has 2 featherweights, 2 301s, and a 99. I've enjoyed learning to service them and use them. Thanks for sharing your love of everything vintage. By the way, tonight I'm making baby bibs on my Janome 4900 because I'm using some specialty stitches. So there is a time to pull that out. I've got a Janome 6500 and it's got wonderful stitches that I've never played with. So at that point, you know, or if I want to do some machine applique, that machine will come out to play. But if I'm just doing straight stitching, I love the closer feed dogs. I just get better piecing for my patchwork with feed dogs that are narrow and are only built for just straight stitching. So let the machine do the job it's supposed to do. This is a picture of her herd. She's sharing some of her beautiful lovelies with us right there. Aren't they just awesome? So yes, I also have this habit of when I'm on a driving trip, getting to my hotel, popping up Craigslist for the area and seeing what's to be found there. But you know, I think I've pretty much reached saturation level. There's only a couple machines that I would absolutely love to find, and I don't mind waiting for them. I don't want to fill that desire too quickly, because then what's to wait for? They'll come my way if it's supposed to be. So Deb says, this is Deborah who says, I'm watching in Sydney, Australia. So hello, Sydney, Australia. How are you this afternoon? She says, I saw a Singer 401 for sale. Can you tell me the difference between 401 and the 404s? Okay, so the 401 has a place to put cams to do decorative stitches. It does do zigzag. It's a wonderful machine. I know people who absolutely love their 401s. It is slant needle. It is gear driven, so there is no belt inside. It's all gears and it's all metal, so it will last forever. But it is a zigzag machine, so the feed dogs are a little bit wider apart, and it has a zigzag needle plate. But you can get a straight stitch needle plate for the 404 if you wanted to do straight stitching on there, and if you wanted not to have any triangles sucked down the needle hole. Okay, the 404 is the straight stitch only machine. So this is a 404. It's the same line as the 400 series as the 401, but it only does straight stitch. It goes forward, it goes backward, and you've got your stitch regulator, and that's it. But it is also slant needle, gear driven, no belt, very strong motor, and they sew very fast. I think the slant needle machines were the best machines that Singer ever made. I love sewing on them. So if the price is right, go give that 401 a try. You really can't go wrong if the price is right. If you happen upon a 404, or if you are just getting interested in sewing on vintage machines, but featherweights are too expensive, and you really like a bigger bobbin, and you really would miss it if you couldn't thread your needle straight on, go for a 404. It's a wonderful machine. So this cabinet that the 404 is in will fit the 404, the 400 series, and the 500 series. This cabinet actually came with my 500 Rocketeer, and that's living up at the cabin. So I really should bring it home and sew on it here, because it's also a fun one. It does cams and decorative stitches, and it looks like a spaceship. So what's not to like about 1961? So that's fun. I hope that you go take a look at that machine. If I'm ever going to look at a machine, I always bring a needle with me, because you never know if there's a needle in it. And I bring thread, and I bring some fabric to sew on, and give it a try before you buy. And I never buy a machine that I can't plug in to test. That's my rule for myself. Okay, so that was from Deborah. And here we've got, let's see, oh, I already did that one. You know what? I want to sew. I want to sew a minute. So pick up one with white corners, and oh yes, we need this fabric. Some fabrics you just look at the back side and you know you remember them from 1970 something. I had a skirt made out of this. Loved it. Loved it. Yeah. So I had a huge box show up yesterday. I went upstairs for something and came back and brought this box downstairs, and Mona says, "What's in that box?" I swear the box had to be 15 pounds, if not more. Fabric scraps. Fabric scraps. Insane. But we sure have fun. So I have a feeling that the scraps in that box, I'm still working on my H blocks. Do you remember? I think I worked on those last Quilt-Cam or something. I'm going to need more. I've sewn together the ones I've done, but I need to cut more. So I figured while I am sorting through that box of scraps, I will set aside the ones that I want for H blocks. And then if I can purpose that fabric, if I don't add that fabric to the stash, it doesn't count. This is just going to be a fun throw around quilt. I love quilts that were never meant to be a showpiece. They were just made to cover people and snuggle us in. What's that piece? This is just such easy sewing. I feel almost guilty that I've let it wait this long. But I didn't have the idea to sew these into 4s until just today, because I was thinking I wanted to lay everything out and web the entire top in rows across, and I'd have to leave the whole thing laid out on the floor forever. So no, we're not doing that. Now I'm just feeling those seams nest so well, and then I just keep them there. And then nest the second one. I think this would be great all in one colorway too. If you did all of the lozenges in different reds, that would be neat. A couple more here and then we'll answer some more. The only thing I have not packed besides these lozenges, my clothes. Everything else is in the car. Everything else is ready to go. I just haven't packed my suitcase yet. Okay, Emma says, let's see. Baby quilt sizes. Hello again from South Korea. My baby quilts tend to be no bigger than 40 by 50 or so. I limit myself to the crib size, warm and natural batting size. My Star Wars postage stamp quilt for my first niece, born in December, was 40 inches wide by 56 inches long, and is the biggest I've ever done so far on my little Janome 501, both piecing and quilting. Picture attached. Please forgive the tiny silver sliver of Han Solo's arm that got cut off in my bad picture, she says. So we got to see. Oh, cute! How cute is that? So it's all Star Wars animals or characters. And that's 40 by 56. So it does fit the crib size mattress, so the child can love this for a long, long time. I think if you were going to put the effort into it, I think that's a way to go. And I have no problem doing, I've done some rectangular, I've done some square. It doesn't matter to me. For me, whatever size block I choose, I need enough repeat to make the design look whatever. So sometimes the design determines what size the quilt's going to be, and that will also determine whether I put borders on it or not, or how wide the borders are. And I have no problem seaming the back if I need it bigger, wider than 40 inches. That's not a problem either. That is adorable. How cute. Even Princess Leia, you can tell she's got cinnamon buns on her head. That's great. So hello to Korea. That's just so exciting. We've had Australia, we've had Korea here tonight. Wonderful. Grammy's Quilting says, glad to see you back to yourself. Last time I saw you in Tampa, you were sick. Oh, I was so sick. I hope that is gone for a long time now. It took about a month to get over. Want to thank you for the ice cream and the fabulous lecture. You were well worth the trip. Working on my wild and goosey blocks tonight. Have a few more to finish. My setting I have planned, doing regular gooses and neutral ones. Thanks for Quilt-Cam tonight. So much better with friends, she says, and it's SEW, so much better. And that's true. If we can get an extra hour out tonight, we'll look at it in the morning and we'll feel so proud of our accomplishments. So that's wonderful. So that's Mona in Melbourne. We did have good ice cream. That was a lot of fun. Susan Paulson says, phone fix. She says, I have the same phone. They told me to completely turn my phone off for at least 1 minute once a day, and it will clean out cache and run much better. Worth a try. Thanks for all you do. You know, that's a good idea, Susan. I've been restarting it every morning because this is one thing that happens to mine. It's S5, and it drives me absolutely nuts. And this only started after one of the most recent updates that they did. I will go to take a picture, and I'll click camera, and it goes like the camera's going to open up, and it never opens up. It stays as black screen. And then it'll say camera has failed. But if I restart the phone, then it works again. So, I mean, I've tried just about everything. I am about ready to have it set back to factory and reload it all and just start new, because we got to have our phones. And nothing is worse than trying to take a picture of a student holding their block and they're sitting there holding their block. Okay, hold it up and give me a smile. Oops, my camera doesn't work. Wait, just hold that smile. I got to restart my phone. No. So something has to happen here. Also, have you ever had this happen? The thing I loved about my S5 at first was the predictive text. So if there was something that I typed again and again and again, like check the free patterns tab at the top of the blog, it would know that that's what I was going to type. And those words come up automatically if you type that same sentence over and over again. So pretty soon you're not having to type anything. You're just clicking the words. Check the free patterns tab at the top of the blog. It's somewhere along the line, and I can pinpoint the exact day when it happened. I was in Fredericksburg, Texas, and all of a sudden I had lost all of my phrases were gone. It doesn't recognize what I type anymore. And it's like something has invaded my phone and it doesn't know that I am me anymore. So it's like some generic word comes up, which is not the word that I would be typing. So it's lost its predictability. Anybody have that happen? I know that's not quilt related, but it's enough to drive me insane. So I will check that. Thank you so much. Okay. Donna says, I am interested in making the Texas braid quilt for the South Holland Guild's raffle quilt. Do I have your permission? Absolutely. You can make quilts from my patterns for your raffle or for whatever you're doing. The only thing that I ask is that you do not rename the quilt. If I call it Texas braid in my pattern and you're making it, you need to call it Texas braid. And you have to call and put that on the label. Or if you don't live in Texas and you're making it for Missouri and you want to call it Missouri braid, then on the label you put made from Texas braid pattern by Bonnie Hunter, blah 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 blah. So what happens is that the patterns lose their origin. If we take somebody else's pattern and maybe it was called Posy Wozy whatever, and we change it to something else, then it loses its provenance to where that pattern came from. So consider this: if you rename a pattern, at least on the label put down what the original name of the pattern was, so that people know where you found that. because they'll see it hanging in some quilt show somewhere and they'll think, oh gosh, and they'll take down the name of what you put it and they'll try to Google it and they won't find that pattern source. So that's the only thing. Okay, so see, this little notice I just got, camera isn't responding. Do you want to close it? Yes. Okay. So yes, you have my permission, Donna. That's not a problem at all, and I wish you lots of luck. Okay. And sometimes my back button doesn't even work. So Avon says, Quilt-Cam, I too am working on Grand Illusion. Am trying to buy less tone on tone, as I love your scrappy quilts with all the colors in the neutral position. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, those solid neutrals get fairly boring after a while. So stuff I love. It's got a white background. It's got stripes that are little black dots. Stuff like that. It still reads as a neutral, but it's got something going on it. This one was kind of a cream colored fabric that had grapes and grape leaves and little curling tendrils. It's kind of a toile, but since it's only a 2-inch square, you just see a little blue leaf on there. Now this is your standard boring white on cream print. This one down here, I think, is a plain piece of muslin. So I tried to scatter those in between other things. So here's the basic boring white on white. Can you even see that there's a print on it? By the time I get it in the quilt and get it quilted, it's just going to look like solid white. It won't look like it has anything, but you can see the print on this. This is a white with little brown paisleys and little brown flowers. This one down here is a little scattered print, probably from 1980 something, but it has a cream background, so it works really well. And this was kind of a golden beige had little blue and pink flowers on it. So just look at the ground fabric and it'll tell you where you want to play. And I love stuff with fairly small prints because I do a lot of small piecing. If it was giant prints, it would be harder to use. Okay. So how about green next to purple? And Millennium fabric, we like that. Because nobody else will use it. It's like, you know, if you can't beat them, make it work. So yes, there's one of these corners is a black Millennium fabric. But by the time it's just half of an 1.5 inch square, there's not much print showing. We need something a little bit more fun. How about lavender floral thing? So I haven't even checked the weather to know what it's going to be doing up in New Jersey next week. And me and the Jersey Turnpike, oh, that's going to be fun. So one thing that I tend to do, so yes, here I have a white on white fabric. It's got music notes. I don't know if you can see the pattern or not, but when I first was putting this up here, I went like this, where a white on white will join a white on white. It looks like one big white triangle. Not so interesting. So if I rotate one of these lozenges, then I can put the little red hearts next to the white on white. And that scatters the prints and it scatters the white on white so they don't look just like a big vacant spot. So put some busies next to some plains and that kind of spreads them out a little bit. Whoops. And you know what? I just made a mistake. That you can't just turn that around and make it work. If I want to press these all to the dark, you guys didn't tell me this. I was putting a white to a white. I need a white to a black. I was just looking at the red and the yellow. This must mean that my eyes are tired. So let's put the yellow next to a, no, not that one. Yellow next to a purple. It's got to have black corners. Okay. Better. But the same thing goes with the black tone on tones. If it looks like a solid black, I won't sew it to another something that looks like a solid black. It has to have, the next one will have to have a print or something on it. all of a sudden, as I'm seeing these combos come together, camera isn't responding. Do you want to close it? So do you see what I mean? Okay. So I'm going to turn this off for a second, and I'm going to restart the phone while we're sitting here. Not only that, my battery feels like it's really heating this thing up. Device will restart. Okay. So that'll do its thing for a minute. You know, we love our phones. We hate our phones. We need our phones. Yeah. But I tell you what, they're a pain. So I think I'm going to have to reset this one back to factory. I didn't even have the camera on, and it was saying the camera was not functioning. So, and it does this thing too, like Yahoo Voice Messenger plugin stopped working, and I didn't even have it on. So pain. But I like these, and the more I sew on these, the more I'm liking them. So don't you love it when a project languishes, but when you get it back out, it's like, oh, hey, I like you. And then you can't wait to see it done. So I hope I come back from Maryland and New Jersey with a top. And I don't think I planned on borders on this one. I think it was just all going to be lozenges and then just a black binding. One of the reasons we went up to the cabin early was because we need a new roof. And I am excited about the prospect of a new, we're going to put a metal roof on. And I've never, other than the single wide trailer that we lived in our early married days, have not lived in a house with a metal roof. So I'm really excited. The guy came out and did his measuring and his estimating and whatever. And the color we chose is called terracotta red. So it's not a red, it's kind of a rusty red. And I'm really excited about that. So that should be happening while I'm gone on this trip. And I told the hubby that he needs to take lots of pictures. He says, well, it's not that easy to take pictures and I'll probably forget. I said, you better take pictures. So if you have a metal roof on your dwelling, do you love it? Do you hate it? Hopefully you love it. I'm excited. They say it's the last roof we'll ever have to put on that cabin, and that's my goal. Okay, Ramona on Baby Quilt says, my elephant block, it says it's a 24-inch block, will have two 12-inch blocks on top with 3 balloons tied to the elephant's tail. Pinwheel blocks from leaders and enders will be my border. Not sure how big this quilt will be, but I usually make them about 45 by 54. Just a good crib size. So again, if it fits the crib mattress, then that it can be a snuggly nap quilt for that child up until the time they're 5 and they get their big boy or big girl bed. So that's a good size. Thanks, Ramona. And this one is in the guest book. It says Paula Cameron has posted a message to your guest book, so I have to click the link to go read it. And it says, see, it don't open up. Okay, it says, I just got an Eldridge 2-spool vintage machine, 2 in fact, just sold one already. So a 2-spool machine is on my bucket list. You know how we always say, why can't they just make a machine that has more thread in the bobbin? Well, they did about 100 years ago. The Eldridge 2-spool has a spool for the bobbin thread underneath and a spool on top, and you can just keep sewing forever with no bobbin running out until your spool runs out. I think that's something that they ought to incorporate today. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So I'm on the lookout for a 2-spool. I think that would be terrific. Okay, and we have April who says, got a great idea. She says, a great idea just popped into my head. You know how you always get boxes of scraps from your fans? Why not someday do a drawing of them winning a box of scraps? Well, you know, we could do that, and I've thought of doing that, and I did do a giveaway with Quilt Maker where it included a book and an envelope full of scraps, and I've thought about that to do a drawing. I don't know if I would want to send an entire humongous box to somebody, especially if I do a drawing and I get somebody in Australia. That's expensive. That's really expensive to ship that way. But that is a fun idea. We'll have to definitely consider that. She says, might be fun between other times of magazines and other stuff. And she says she got her Minnesota treadle working. So that's April in Minnesota. Of course, you got in Minnesota. That's wonderful. And this one is from Debbie, who says, we have a metal roof on our house, which is a log cabin, and I love it. Wonderful. So that's a yay for there. And Ramona says on text prediction. Yes, I've already done all this, Mona. I went to settings. I went to everything. It's all set the way it should be, but the phone's not doing it. That's the problem. But thanks for considering that. Kathy Joe says she loves the new e-magazine that was on my blog yesterday morning. Did you see it? It's all called Hexie Love, and it's all about the love of Hexies. And this e-magazine will come out 6 issues a year. You can find out information by reading the yesterday morning's blog post. And there's a giveaway for a free issue so that you can sample it. I will be drawing for that next week at the end of the blog hop. So go check that out. And then this one is Donna Zaleski says, I'm interested in, oh, already read that one. That was Donna in the Texas Braid. We got all these same people, but here we go. Kathy Crowfoot, Quilt-Cam anniversary. It was 2 years ago today when I first saw Quilt-Cam. I miss out on the live airings more often than not, and tonight was a lucky day when I logged in to see Quilt-Cam was on. I didn't know it was our Quilt-Cam anniversary. That's very cool. I wanted to take a moment to let you know how much I appreciate everything you've taught. Some of the highlights: get that 1/4 inch seam right, embrace color. It gives the quilt a life of its own, and there are no real rules when combining colors and fabrics. Amen on that one. Number 3, experiment with colors and methods that work for me. Good. Push your boundaries. Allow yourself to try something you haven't done before. And if it doesn't work, either fine-tune it or throw it out the window, but try something new. That's awesome. Number 4, when it comes to fabrics, the more the merrier. I love looking at pictures of quilts I have made. I love picking out pieces that have gone from one quilt to another. I keep very few of my own quilts. Most are gifts or community service quilts. True. I absolutely love it. I will find pieces of that same fabric working its way from this quilt to this quilt to this quilt to this quilt. I don't care if I've used that fabric 15 times if I still like that fabric and it does the job that it needs to do. So I don't feel the need to sew from this group of fabrics, and when I'm done with that quilt, get rid of those fabrics. Done with those now. Sewn with them once. Don't need them anymore. They're just as good the second time around, sometimes better. Leaders and enders are fun. Yes, they are. That's her number 5. And number 6, quilting very often grounds and centers me. Me too. It's true. Me too. That's awesome. And she says, I've made several quilts from your patterns. Here's a picture of my fur baby who decided to help me with the binding of my mother-in-law's Irish chain quilt recently when I walked away for a minute or two. So here's a kitty. Can you see her? Peeking out from the quilt binding. She found a cozy place to land, and there she is. That's adorable. Thank you so much for that list, and happy anniversary to all of us who've hung around long enough to enjoy 2 years worth of Quilt-Cam. So her little kitty's name is Sassy. That is so cute. BJ on the predictive text, she says, app settings, language input. Yep. Have predict. Yep. They do. I've already done that. So that's why I think that it's got. If I go back to factory settings, maybe it'll fix the blip that has caused all of this issue. It's just more frustrating. But thanks for the ideas, BJ. Victoria says, watching you. So glad to just sit and see you tonight. Yesterday, I got 6 rows of sashing assembled for the Grand Illusion, and I'm all fired up about completing it soon. Thank you for this wonderful mystery design. It's awesome, and that's from Vicki in New Hampshire. And her, I love taglines on people's emails. Sometimes they just make me giggle, or they make me think and consider things. So her tagline under her signature says, "The secret of patience is doing something else in the meantime." Isn't that true? Because there's sometimes that I've been feeling really uptight about something, and I need to be patient and just wait. I've got some of that going on in my life right now. Things beyond my control. Things are out of my control. Things I cannot change. Just have to wait. And if I can busy myself doing something else, the time goes by. It calms my nerves. The quilting centers my soul, puts the universe as it should be, and it's in control, and I'm ready to go. So I need one with black corners with a ooh. Yes, or maybe this one. So I do put things that I like that one better. Don't you think? The brown polka dots need to go next to the big green paisley. I think so. How are we doing on time? Oh, I got about 5 more minutes. I need to be to bed by 10:30, which is coming up here pretty soon, so that I can get up and hit the road in the morning. I'm not a night owl. I never have been. I'm a morning person, and if I don't get to bed at a decent time, I suffer the next day, and I don't want to drive 8 hours tomorrow and be falling asleep at the wheel. So things that I want to try. Quilt-Cam from a hotel room at night. If the Wi-Fi is good enough, maybe we can do that. It would certainly be a change of scenery. Oh, and did you see I've got the serpentine web all done on behind my chair? Can you see it back there? I thought it looked really springy. All of the forsythia in my neighborhood is in bloom. So we're celebrating with that there. Yep, nest that seam. Just keep your finger on it. Still an awful lot of brown in this quilt. What was I thinking? Well, those were the fabrics that were languishing, right? They were just sitting there. So sew them up. Yes, a whole lot of very ugly floral brown. So we need something bright to stick that next to. No, it's not that bright, but it does look pretty next to that blue. Okay. Yeah, that's not so shabby. Okay. How have we done tonight? Yeah. This will be ready to, I'm just going to leave it in a chain, and I'm going to put it in my car, and it can be pressed when I reach the hotel tomorrow. And I'll be sewing these pairs. So here's what a pair looks like side by side. And I'm going to join them into 4s like this. And then I'll put 2 4s side by side and sew this center seam. And then that'll give me big blocks that I can build the quilt from. And I think that's the way that this is going to come together. It's just going to be easier to travel with, easier to make progress with, instead of laying out each lozenge individually. So that's my plan. So let's see what we've got here. Couple more, and then we're going to call it a night because I got to get to bed. Judy Stokes says, I was sitting here saying, no, don't sew white to white, but you didn't hear me. glad you caught it. I didn't do any of that further down in here, did I? Am I going to find any of that in here? It wouldn't surprise me. You know, quilt scrappy and carry a big seam ripper. So this one is from, let's see what we've got here. This is from Tamara, who says, Tammy K, I am on the hunt for a 301 and wonder if there is any reason to get a short bed versus a long bed. Thanks. The short bed will fit in a cabinet, and there's a little cradle that will fit down in the cabinet so that it's easy to pull the machine out of the cabinet and have it be portable or back in the cabinet. Very, very desirable if you like a machine in a cabinet. If you don't care about a machine in a cabinet, the long bed, well, it has a longer bed. So if you travel with it to go to class or workshops or whatever, it gives you more workspace to be sewing on that long bed. So really, in all essence, you need two of them. Don't you think? Okay, but that's the only difference. And I've got some of each. The machine itself is the same. They run the same. The long beds came in black, and they came in that putty mocha brown color. The short beds, I think, came in black and the two-tone, which they call light brown oyster white, or elbow, or Bel Air. The two-tone like this, you know, the Bel Airs were a very popular automobile in the late 50s. They were kind of like that two-tone. So, but you know, whichever one you can find, if you can find either at a decent price, pick it up. You won't be sorry. You will not be sorry. Awesome machines. All right, everybody. It's gosh, we're heading up to 10:30. This girl's got to pack her suitcase and get to bed. So we will be looking forward to, we might be able to do a Quilt-Cam before I head to Kansas. That's my next trip. When I get back from New Jersey, I have just a couple of days, and then I head out to Kansas. And from Kansas, I'm directly to Spokane. So there's no coming back home before going to Spokane, because we're already halfway there. And then we'll come home. And then I've got a few days after that, I go to Tuscany. A few days after that, I get home from Tuscany, and I'm in Alaska. So it's going to be really kind of hairy along here, but we'll do the best that we can. I will always try to keep you up to date on what's going on with blog posts at least once a day. Hopefully there will be Wi-Fi in Tuscany. I'm sure that the hotel will. Other than that, follow along on Facebook, follow along on Instagram, join our Quiltville's Open Studio group on Facebook, share what you're working on there. There's great friendships to be made. There's a lot of inspiration to be found. And, you know, quilting, it takes a village. So for now, if it's still early where you are, don't feel like you have to shut down and turn out the lights just because I am. See if you can get a few more units sewn, a few more seams done, a few more pieces ironed or sorted or cut or whatever you're doing, and enjoy it. Enjoy this time of the day that you can make some progress on whatever you're working on. And until I see you next time, this is Bonnie Hunter from the basement, signing off at Quiltville. Bye-bye, everybody.